podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for frame rate is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This episode of Frame Rate is brought to you by Pond5, the world's stock media marketplace. If you're a media maker looking for video, photos, illustrations, music, sound effects, After Effects templates, or 3D models, check out Pond5. And for an exclusive 50 free stock media files, go to pond5.com/framerate. And by Squarespace, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website, blog, or online portfolio. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to squarespace.com and use offer code FRAMERATE12. And they recently launched a developer platform for complete code control.
Set fire to your hair, poke a stick at a grizzly bear, eat medicine that's out of date, use your private parts as piranha bait. Dumb ways to die, so many dumb ways to die. Dumb ways to die, so many dumb ways to die. Get your toast.
It's Frame Rate! Welcome to Frame Rate episode 105. 105.5. I'm Tom Merritt.
Wow, that is a hot fever, Tom. You better get to the hospital. You're rocking 105.5.
Welcome to 105.5, the Frame Rate.
Hey, man, so that was that Dumb Ways to Die video. You should watch the whole thing. It's adorable, and it features cartoon characters doing dumb things and then dying. That whole thing was put together to encourage people to please not mess around near train tracks because of like it goes through all these dumb ways to die, and then the last one is goofing around on damn train tracks. So don't be that jackass. So as a public service announcement, I thought that was astonishingly 32 million views in the first 2 weeks since they put that out.
Well, it was very cute. And piranhas were eating your genitals. So those two things combined, really. I mean, how can you pass it up?
2 for 2. That's those are the only criteria I look for. So please.
Let's move into the big story.
This just in, the big story.
Netflix decided to announce on Tuesday that they were reaching a big deal with Disney. I don't know why they don't respect the fact that we do Frame Rate on Monday, and if they had announced it on early Monday, we could have talked about it last week, but everybody's had all week to think about this. But it's a huge thing. Immediately, they're going to get access to back catalog stuff. Then starting in 2013, some of the direct-to-video, they call it now, used to be direct-to-DVD movies, will start showing up on Netflix. And then in 2016, they get access to Disney titles, to Marvel titles, to Pixar titles. And they don't own Lucasfilm yet, but the word on the street is they will get access to Lucasfilm titles as they come out. So this is in the pay window. There's the movie goes into theaters, right? And then it goes to pay-per-view and airplanes, and then it goes to HBOs and Showtimes and Cinemaxes. Netflix is getting that window, that HBO, Showtime, and Cinemax window, to have movies on Netflix. And guess who used to have the deal with Disney, Brian?
Who? Wait. Oh, I know this one. You're talking about Starz. It was a less lucrative deal with Starz.
Yeah, the company that just abandoned Netflix a year ago, and everyone said, "Ooh, I don't know if Netflix is going to make it. They don't have a Starz deal." Netflix just went and said, "Fine, Starz, we'll just take your Disney deal. How about you? How you like that?"
In fact, the only Disney-related content that doesn't make it is I know that DreamWorks had a distribution deal with Disney, and the DreamWorks deal is already tied up with Showtime, I believe is what it is. But outside of that, I mean, the fact that you keep rolling forward. Now, yes, there are already Marvel movies that are on Netflix, and yes, there have been Disney movies on Netflix. But the fact that they are getting this primetime, universal, across the board kind of deal is way big, big for Netflix.
The juiciest part of this deal, which is that pay window stuff. Which, theoretically, in 2017, when the Star Wars movie comes out, the second one of the 3 they're going to make, it shows up on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
After it's out of theaters. It doesn't come till 2016, though. Netflix will probably be around in 2016, but it's a while to wait.
Oh, Tom, look, this is the way grown-ups do it, man. They make decisions. They're thinking a half decade ahead of the game. They're planning to be there. They're planning to be relevant. There's no doubt in my mind right now. Like, project yourself 4 years into the future. Who's more relevant, HBO or Netflix at that point?
HBO.
What? No
Probably
way.
still, by a hair.
No way. No.
I think a better way would be like, who's the movie channel or Netflix? Netflix.
Oh, no.
Stars or Netflix? Probably Netflix.
Take it on HBO. I'm going to say, because they'll have the original content. They'll have the original programming.
Yeah, but HBO doesn't have this deal now. Is HBO not relevant now? They don't have the Disney deal now.
No, I'm just saying that HBO has enjoyed its 30-year head start. But already out of the gates in the last 15 years, Netflix has rocketed up to as far as mainstream relevance. And I think that these are the deals that 4 years from now, like Netflix is going to blow past. Netflix is going to be as relevant as NBC in 4 years. How about that?
That's almost apples and oranges. But I believe HBO stands for hates Brian only because I believe in HBO. But I also believe in Netflix. That's not to say I don't believe in Netflix. I think you're right. I think if what you're saying is Netflix relevance is only going to continue to increase, and in 2016 this is just going to help them crest the waves or raise the sea level or some metaphor like that, then yes, I agree with you.
All right, well, we'll see.
Yeah.
And then I will laugh as we enter Frame Rate episode 327. And I was like, remember what I said all the way back on 105.5?
And then I'll just claim I agreed with you. Oh, yeah, I didn't say you were. Let's go move on to another big story.
Stop everything. It's another big story.
Because you see, Netflix is one aspect of this revolution that we're following, the streaming provider that brings you high-quality stuff right out of the theaters over the internet. The other thing is the thing you use to watch it. And Apple TV is one of those things that everybody is just like tearing their hair out because they want Apple to do to television what they did to music, what they did to smartphones, what they did to tablets, which was essentially take a moribund space and create something out of nothing. And there's a few pieces of information about the Apple TV to consider here, Brian. Tim Cook had an interview with NBC and with Bloomberg. And to both of them, he said the Apple TV is an area of intense interest. He's no longer using the hobby term. He didn't say anything else that was new, but he's definitely kind of advancing the rhetoric slightly. Of course, the analysts are essentially going crazy, saying, oh, 2013, we're going to see an Apple TV in 2013. There's one analyst who's saying Apple may have a better shot at launching an Apple TV if they go outside the U.S. because they can get more favorable licensing agreements than they can here in the U.S., although Paid Content pointed out that they haven't seemed to have those favorable licensing agreements in other areas of television, like on-demand stuff for the iTunes Store. The U.S. still has the best and most wide, comprehensive iTunes Store. And then the Apple TV is getting Bluetooth support in the next update. Some people are thinking it might even get apps as well, but it's definitely getting the ability to put a keyboard in there. So Apple TV, obviously an area of intense interest for everyone, Brian. Is this just all hype and crazy Apple, Apple sneezed and everybody has to pay attention? Or are we really going to see, is this really progress towards Apple getting serious about the set-top box game?
Yes. First of all, by all accounts, they've been working on this. They've been trying to crack this nut for a while. But the Apple TV space in general is a nightmare of legacy everything. They have to overcome the perception of the value of the set-top box. They need to dive into the rat's nest of entrenched interests and existing agreements, because the Apple TV experience is not just the hardware. It's not just that we hate the black puck and that we need to have, something built into a television. As many of these articles point out, the development cycle for something like an Apple TV is you expect a refresh and an improvement every year or two, whereas televisions, of course, you buy and then 4, 5, 8 years later you replace. There is so many entanglements that Apple is perfectly positioned as far as its brand goes, as far as the goodwill of its consumers, to come in and fix all the little niggling factors that still irritate us about the way we consume stuff. I'm going to suggest that perversely, there have not been enough precursors attempting to do what Apple wants to do with the Apple TV for the space to be right for them to swoop in and save the day just yet. I mean, a lot of, as you pointed out, like with tablets, they were not the first with tablets. They weren't the first with multi-touch. They weren't the first with any of these things, but there were precursors that were kludgy and not quite right. Now, we're just barely starting to see that on the hardware side with stuff like Samsung television coming with built-in stuff. And, they claim that it's really easy and you wave your hands and you talk and it searches on Google. The hardware, I suspect, is far more disappointing, and there's no licensing software support. Meanwhile, separately from we've talked about how we want one set-top box to rule them all and to govern our experience through the online, the over-the-top experience, as well as television, something to also give us DVR unlimited and Hulu and so on. Again, I think we need to see other people get closer and fail a couple more times before we see Apple enter this space. But when they do, if it's anything like their past experiences, it will be light years ahead of anything else we've seen. And we can go back to those days where we perceived the family room television not as a monitor to connect a bunch of devices to, but instead as an appliance. I mean, it has been a decade since I've thought of the television as an appliance. It's always been a monitor for me.
A few of these articles say that Apple shouldn't make a television set. They go with what you've always said, which was give me a set-top box that I can change my television set and not have to change the box, or I can change the box and not the television set. Don't build them together. What if what we're seeing is actually Apple changing strategy to, in other words, not come out with a brand new Apple TV, but we're starting to see it. They're just going to keep adding the features until they get overwhelming momentum and somebody goes on board, like a Time Warner.
Well, and that's what's great about the Apple TV in its current form as the little black puck. It's something that they have spent 5 years claiming was just a hobby, that they're not serious about, that they like the potential, and it's for this esoteric group of people who are hardcore media enthusiasts, so they can afford to tinker and experiment and develop. But then meanwhile, this is all R&D that they could be doing. And to be honest, I think they got a ways to go on the licensing side and on the hardware side. We need to hit the hardware side to a point where the hardware needs to be so overpowered for this thing that they can comfortably say for 5 years, you will have no need to upgrade the hardware on this thing. There's nothing that you will want your television to do.
With the puck they have now, if they added an app that was called Comcast or Time Warner or DirecTV, it would sell like crazy. That's all they need. And then they could start coming out with higher powered versions. And they could come out with, and the new 32-inch iMac has Apple TV built in. And then essentially that's your Apple television. But it's not a product. It's not something where they come out with a white television like this thing here and say like, this is now the Apple television. I think we're seeing the Apple TV released slowly in front of our eyes in slow motion.
That is not what I've seen from Apple in general. Apple is not comfortable with a confusing user experience. And no matter how good each individual component of what you described is, it is still an inherently more confusing user experience than an all-in-one appliance television would be. And I got to believe that they truly are dedicated and that what they want to do is come in and create they want to take us back to the appliance simplicity.
Yeah, and that's where the iMac comes in, right? But in other words, it's not a separate product. They just say, and it's a television. And it's how they introduced the iPhone. Web, voice calls, text messaging, or I don't remember what the three are anymore.
Yeah.
But, all right.
In fact, that's what Steve Jobs said too. He flubbed his own line. He was like, I don't remember.
I don't even remember. Here's the freaking iPhone. Buy it in millions, please. Let's move to yet another big story.
Tuck in your bootstraps. It's yet another big story.
From time to time, we like to empower you to pamphleteer on behalf of the online television revolution. And that's why we're pointing out this Atlantic story by, where's the byline? Oh, there it is, Derek Thompson, which is sort of a true and false about the myths of why sports drives up the cost of your cable subscription. He's not saying sports doesn't drive up the cost of your cable subscription, but he kind of debunks a few myths. Like, some people will say half of your cable TV bill pays for sports channels. He's like, no, it's actually not half. It's less than that, but it is a large chunk. It's all cable's fault. False. Television's bundling model allows runaway price inflation. True, because you're subsidizing the people who watch more sports than you if you don't watch a lot of sports. Some awesome tech company will come along and fix everything. He's like, false. These are regional deals. And so for a Google or an Apple or somebody to come in, they would have to like essentially beat all of the regional sports networks in all the markets to do some national thing, and that's just not going to happen. Did
the tone of this article rub you the wrong way, the way it did me?
Oh, is it one of those? See, I didn't think about that, but every once in a while we have one of these articles where it just it kind of comes off as maybe a little snotty, and it rubs Brian the wrong way.
Yeah. Okay. Wait. Oh, like there's never any of these that rub you the wrong way?
No, because I'm perfectly fair and impartial all the time.
No. Okay. First of all, you're splitting hairs if you say you're like it's not half. It's $12 out of every 30, and it's like, okay, that's almost half of the usage fee of the amount, the whole.
No, but he doesn't say that. He says it's 15%, not 50.
No.
That's a significant difference.
No. You're misreading it. It's $12 out of the $80. He says 15% of the $80, and but that's not what people are saying when they're saying half your cable bill. He's saying the entire pie of money that goes to channel operators is $30. And of that $30, 12 goes to sports,
I actually
which
think
is almost half.
But I think he's making a fair point, because people go out and say half your cable bill is for sports, and people who have an $80 cable bill think, wow, $40 of my cable bill is sports. And you bring up a very good point, Brian. What the truth is half of the programming costs are sports. And maybe he didn't write this in a way that was,
well, exactly.
Perfectly.
It's like
fair,
okay, if you're gonna take a nuanced position and say, please stop overstating the value of it, then don't write your article where you've blatantly
but now you're just picking on the writer. I'm focusing on the information, and the information.
I don't have a problem with the message. I have a problem with the tone he took. I hate. Oh, what does he say? Let me find this exact line.
Yeah, but so what? So he took a tone. Get over it. It's good information.
Here, television's bundling model allows runaway price inflation in sports. True. If you pay for cable and hate sports, then, well, gosh, I'm really sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry he has a voice
great.
When he wrote. He should write in, perfect AP style.
I
and
hated
not
his
offend
voice.
Brian.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying his voice.
Okay, so you hate his voice, but the facts remain. This is good information in here.
Yes, it is. It is good intel.
Let's move on to yet another big story.
Presented stunt.
Paid Content has a story from Oliver and Olbaum Media Strategy in the UK showing that 10.3% of surveyed pay TV subscribers in the UK plan to change their service over the next year. But before you get all cheering for the cord cutters, what they're probably going to do is cut down the number of channels they subscribe to. In other words, maybe bring their package down a level or cut out HBO, or probably not HBO in that case because it's the UK, but cut off some of those pay TV packages and just lower the overall thing. And I have to say, when I saw this, I'm like, that is exactly what I've done. I took away one of my DirecTV DVRs from the bedroom and was just like, I don't need to pay to rent that anymore. I never watch anything in there. I've got a Roku in there. I'm fine. I actually use Slingbox to an Apple TV to watch things from the family room in the bedroom. Just means you can't watch them at the same time.
And we've talked about this idea of cord shaving instead of cord cutting. Like,
yes.
You're not able to jump it all at the same time, but you'll dip your toe in the pool. And I'm not going to – I honestly don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, if it means that this is a sign of our timidity and our refusal to give up the traditional package, or if it's a case where this is great because everyone's tasting just a little bit of the online freedom that's possible. So I don't know how to read it, but it is very, very good intel.
One way to read it, I would think, is to say – people are, because what the other part of this study is that people are buying services like Love Film, and it may be that what people are doing is saying, you know what, I don't want to pay for that pay TV package anymore from Sky. I'm gonna cut that from my cable, and I'm gonna pay for Netflix instead. And that plays right into what you were talking about earlier about Netflix versus HBO and the relevance as time marches on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and again, these are all data points. And as you've heard me say on this very network before, we can't proclaim any one data point to be proof of a trend, but they all kind of come together.
Yep. This episode of Frame Rate is brought to you by Pond 5, the world's stock media marketplace. I know many of you are media makers yourself. You like to make films, or maybe you make audio. Maybe you need some sound effects. Maybe you're making a TV show. Maybe just making web clips, doing some video blogging. You can get over 10 million professional quality photos, vector illustrations, music tracks, sound effects, customizable motion graphics templates, 3D models, and more at pond5.com. The correct collection is growing by leaps and bounds all the time. Brian, have we received any people who've taken advantage of the 50 free stock media files at pond5.com/framerate?
I'm a little disappointed to say no. I mean, how hard is it to take footage of me looking dumb, which there's plenty of it out there, of Tom looking smart, of throwing on one of these 50 free clips and just, say, in a world where one guy's smart and the other guy's totally dumb.
And one guy's a penguin.
Fake frame rates. Right, exactly.
During the sunrise of our world.
And you realize it'll fill our hearts with joy.
Stands alone, or with a bunch of other penguins in that case.
I'll tell you, you know what? Maybe what we need to do, Tom, and we don't have time this week, but maybe next time, you and I will sketch it out. We'll show them how Ed Wood does it. We'll take some random clips. We'll make a voiceover, and then if somebody wants to assemble it into a package, they can.
You know what? I figured it out. You know what they're all doing?
What?
They're like, I have a hard drive full of penguin videos. I'm uploading them to Pond 5 and selling them. Forget you guys. I'm not going to waste time making a video for you. I'm going to get 50% royalties for each and every sale and set the price myself at pond5.com because it is the world's stock media marketplace. So they're all taking advantage of that aspect of it.
If only there was one particular website they could go to show their support of Frame Rate.
Well, there is, Brian. I'm glad you set me up to knock that softball out of the park because pond5.com/framerate is the place where you can go to get 50 free stock media files. So go there, show Pond 5 some love, show Frame Rate some love, show the penguins of stock video some love, or anything. You can search for it all there at pond5.com/framerate. We thank them for their support of Frame Rate. Let us see what is slipping into the stream. I didn't know where to put this in the show, but we had to mention it. ZDTV is becoming a men's magazine. G4, or I guess NBC, has announced that G4 will, sometime after the first of the year, change its name to the Esquire channel. And of course, as most of you know, they got rid of X-Play and Attack of the Show and the legacy Tech TV brands that had either descended or maintained since the merger of Tech TV and G4. But it's all over but the men's reality shows.
Well, and keep in mind, it's like if you're going to be mad at this, you also have to be mad. Like we saw a similar evolution with, let me take you back to the halcyon days of 1995 when you could watch the Duke Boys 24 hours a day on the Nashville network and TNN. And then TNN said, hey, nobody's watching us. So they became the national network where you could watch 24-hour reruns of Star Trek The Next Generation. And then finally they gave that up and they said, all right, we're Spike TV. And it seems like something very similar is happening here. Now, the question is, if you really loved the Nashville network, were you mad when they went to Spike TV? And it's like, if you really loved Tech TV or ZDTV, are you mad to see them become Esquire? Because it seems like the first time they gave up your format, you'd be mad. And after that, it seems like, whatever, it's just a different organization now.
I think if you're a current fan of anything, when they change it, you get mad because you're the current fan of that thing and you don't want it to be changed. I think that goes without saying, but I said it anyway, so there. I know for a fact that when I was still at Tech TV back in 2004, this was on the table. They were trying to do partnerships with Maxim Magazine. What it was, they looked at their demo and they said, you know what? We have a very high VPVH, viewers per viewing households, in this wealthy, older market that makes a lot of money, $70,000 plus per year, and they've got disposable income because they're old enough now. The kids are out of the house. They're not spending as much as they used to on raising children. We need to market to them. So to sell the advertisers to them, we need to have the programs that impress the advertisers and bring in more of those guys. Well, and that was Tech TV. That was 2004. They've been thinking that way all along. And essentially what they've decided to do is say, well, instead of trying to force that into the tech niche, if we can get Esquire to partner up with us, it's a strong brand, chuck it. Let's just go do it.
Well, and we've seen the same thing with brands that don't change their name. For example, we watched MTV morph into a reality programming television because, of course, people grew up and the nature of music shifted over the years. Or likewise, we see this with vehicle brands where it's like Scion, when it first came out, meant only, bizarre, cheap cars for kids who are finally getting their first vehicle. As those kids become in their mid-20s and late 20s and then eventually high dollar value mid-30s or whatever, you're going to start to see the Scion brand mature and develop and change and start to mean something. You'll get increasingly expensive cars as people begin to continue to associate with them. So it's like, it makes sense that if they have these viewers, if this is the type of people watching G4 are already an Esquire kind of crowd, well then, by all means, go ahead and just, call it what it is.
Meanwhile, NBC Sports partnering up with Yahoo to do some cross-pollination. Yahoo Sports will get the ability to carry some of NBC Sports video, including live streams of Sunday Night Football. NBC Sports gets the advantage of some of the writers and pundits on Yahoo's sports site and Yahoo Sports Video, and the Yahoo Fantasy Sports will now become the fantasy sports engine behind NBC Sports. We're seeing Yahoo do a lot of this sort of thing. They partnered with CBS for the Insider Show. They've partnered with ABC News. So this is an interesting way of the revolution happening, where instead of you just move to online, you partner with somebody who's like, we're not a TV company, but we've got a content audience that you don't have, and we can help each other out.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the actual views for this kind of program are staggering. It's like when you move the content to where the eyeballs already are, you get almost depressing numbers, for as hard as we work on our little show at Frame Rate or whatever. And then you see like some partnered stuff that gets thrown out there. It's like this is where the big plays are made in deals like this.
Yeah, for sure. YouTube changed the way they show off the large videos now. Should I make the disclosure, Brian?
Yes, go for it.
My wife works for YouTube. So they've got a new design that shows a big video. It's a line to the left now, so it's a little cleaner. They moved the title below the video. They've got this kind of recommended videos on the right. They've got your channels on the left. I have to say, YouTube constantly has been iterating. I really like this. It just feels better now.
Yeah, I like that they're making changes in their edits, and I like that it's automatic. I don't have here. Let me actually do a bigger screen capture, because as soon as I read this article, I went and I looked at my own personal page for my Brian Brushwood YouTube, and it automatically, it gives this this bigger, more interesting viewer experience. It's I got to tell you, there's little things I don't like necessarily. Stuff like, for example, down here, I actually like the red part of the bar to shout it, to say how many people dislike a thing. I don't know if that's an attempt to tone down the vindictive rhetoric.
You just don't have any dislikes.
No, it's gray now. There's no more red on there. It used to be,
well, you can't tell because that thing's solid green.
As most of my content is, Tom. Thank you very much. But at any rate, I think it's great. It's very Google for them to constantly be experimenting and constantly looking to discover the next unmet need in online viewing. And I'm glad to see, and it was neat watching them test out this in advance, sort of popping it up randomly, because it would pop up for me just time and again, and I'm sure they're watching to see what we click on and how that measures as far as the usability metrics that they go by. I don't know. I like the careful advancements that they're making.
The things that I don't like, there's now a huge ad at the top of the YouTube.com homepage. I don't know if that's always going to be there or if that's just a current promotion, but it makes it look like the page belongs to the advertiser and not to YouTube, and I don't like that. It's much bigger on my screen than it is on the one we're showing on the video version of the show. But
no, it's all the way as wide as the content.
Yeah,
right
it over-dominates.
Here, take a look on mine right here. Yeah, this is what it looks like for me as well. Yeah, I don't know what to say. If that's what pays for it.
I want to say that they've improved the ability to browse channels, but they still haven't improved it enough. I mean, they have the recommended for you, and they seem to be right. Like, they're recommending, and I don't subscribe to these channels, they're recommending, hey, Machinima Prime, The Verge, Peter Jackson, and Breaking the Taboo, Polygon, which is The Verge's gaming. Like, okay, those all are the kinds of things that I might want to subscribe to. Then it starts breaking it down by genre. So that's better.
This is, and actually, I liked it.
Feel like if I know what I've heard of the Nerdist channel. I want to go find the Nerdist channel. I still don't know how to find it other than searching.
Okay. Well, I mean, you would search it, but what's great about these recommendations are things you are already looking at that it's finally busting you on and saying, hey, man, you watch a lot of these guys. Why not subscribe? And in fact, like now I'm seeing a bunch of stuff that I haven't seen because the first time I loaded it, I was like, I was embarrassed. I was like, what? I'm not subscribed to that? Oh, I should really give them a subscription and stuff. And I suspect that'll be good for someone like me because I know a lot of people are fans, you know, over at Scam School. They don't think to subscribe. But of course, you know, as from a marketing standpoint, it matters tremendously the number of subscriptions you have, whether it's to Twit or to Frame Rate. We don't have our own channel yet, do we?
Twit? Yeah. Yeah.
No. Frame Rate. Oh,
I think we do, but I don't think there's anything on it yet. So we will. We will have that. Aereo is launching more ways to watch their service. While they still fight the battles in court, they're coming to a bunch of different platforms. Their most recent breakout was like they're available on other browsers besides Safari. You can watch them on a PC now. They're also looking at things like Xbox 360 and Xbox Live, but they've come to what? Samsung? Smart apps for TV. So, you know, little baby steps.
Dude, all I know,
into expansion.
Barry Diller, you tilted those windmills, man. You put on your armor, you slashed around with your $billion sword, and you fight the good fight. Keep on rocking.
Redbox Instant. That's the Verizon Coinstar combo that's going to be an online streaming version of the Redbox DVD kiosks. So in other words, a Netflix-type competitor. Will not launch until spring 2013. But CEO Lowell McAdam of Verizon did say that sometime between now and January, they will launch a beta for some customers to come and try it out. So they've got a private beta going on right now. They're going to launch a public beta. He said, I think later this month into the first part of January, we will open it up to customers, but in a beta sort of format.
Well, welcome to the party, Redbox. As soon as you get here, this is like the phone call saying, like, "Hey guys, I know you're all rocking over there online. Traffic's real bad on the 405. I gotta hang in there. 2013, be right there."
Well, that's not unusual. Companies who haven't launched products tell you when they're going to come.
Yeah, sure.
That seems perfectly normal. You know what is unusual, though, is saying we are going to block YouTube from 2009 to 2012, and then we're going to launch our own video sharing site. That's what Iran has done with Mehr, M-E-H-R, focusing on Persian-speaking users and promoting Iranian culture as a replacement for YouTube, I guess, inside Iran. You know, Iran's trying to lock down the internet and make an Iranian-only version of the internet. So this is their video site.
It is astonishing to me. I mean, I you know, obviously, if you live in a relatively free society, it's astonishing what other less free societies put up with and seem to be okay with putting up with. But it's like just in the last 10, 15 years, the nature of the internet has made the very idea of censorship just astonishing to me that anyone would try it. I mean, it's like shape the signal, roll with it, speak your opinion. But the idea of just shutting it off, it just seems like it's less and less possible. And I would be really curious if anyone watches or listens to our program in Iran and wants to write in and kind of give us a boots on the ground opinion.
Yeah, we used to have an Iranian listener of Buzz Out Loud and Tech News Today, Siavish. I follow him on Facebook, so I know he's still doing okay, but I haven't had an email from him in a while, so I don't know if he's listening or somebody else out there. That'd be great. fr@twit.tv. Let's move on to Tube Tops. The Sony PlayStation 3 is the top way to stream Netflix, even more popular than a personal computer, according to Sony.
Totally believe it, man. And it's like, and to be honest, if I had a PlayStation 3, I'm almost certain it would be my primary device. But since I don't, it's my Xbox, because my kids all day long, like, we have not even used our set-top box forever. And every time, like, the kids will watch all the shows of a certain variety, and then they'll go to another one, or they'll want to watch TV, but then they'll just discover more and more content on Netflix. This doesn't surprise me at all. It's so convenient to use to use a game station of any variety, whether it's the Xbox or the PlayStation 3. And the fact that the PlayStation 3 is more powerful probably tells me that it starts up faster and gets to your content. It's probably a better user experience.
I think it's
than the
probably
Xbox.
already on. For people, and Reed Hastings says that PlayStation has been ahead of the game. They were an early adopter in testing Netflix. They were the first with full 1080p, Dolby 5.1. So that's probably the reason, according to Reed Hastings, that they're number one. I find that I go to the Roku because it just seems simple, right? Mm-hmm. And that's because I don't have the PS3 or the Xbox on all the time. I think if I had them on, then I'd probably use them because it's there. But the Roku's is on, and it's easy, and I know I'm going to be in Netflix most of the time anyway as soon as I turn it on. So
yeah,
but yeah, I could see why the PS3, A, because people are like, ooh, but it's always the most advanced Netflix app, and B, I'm a PS3 user and I always have it on and I'm playing it. That would give it a leg up.
The PS3 or the Netflix app for PS3 is pretty much the only thing we use our PS3 for these days.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah, it's great. And I mean, the experience on the PS3 is great.
And you don't have any other options? For
no,
Netflix
we don't really have
PC,
any other set-top boxes.
There you go.
I mean, that was one of the reasons why I got the PS3 in the first place. Oh, this could be a good media streamer, and it's nice to be able to play games. I never play games on it. It ends up being just a media streamer and
I think
Netflix.
That's probably a common story, yeah. Verizon has filed a patent for a DVR that can watch you and tell whether you're cuddling or arguing and serve you the appropriate ads. This is one in a series of patents that have been filed. Microsoft's got one of these, Apple's got one of these, of cameras that can watch what you're doing and then serve ads based on what you're doing. But this is the creepiest one I've seen yet. I mean, in the patent filing, they used the example of sounds of arguing prompting ads for marriage counseling or sounds of cuddling prompting ads for contraceptives.
Well, and I mean, that's the nature of, patents are always like this land grab. So no matter how ridiculous the idea is, it's a matter of firstsies. And what's interesting is whether or not there's any publicity blowback from them going for all of these. I suspect that it would be minor, but
it's just a patent filing. I mean, it would be a publicity blowback if they said we've got a product that we're developing.
Sure.
I haven't seen anybody who's filed these patents go for a product. But you play the patent game to build up a lot of patents. So most patents that are filed never turn into products. They just sit in a big pile that gets measured when people start patent fights.
Sure.
So that's probably what this is
They
for.
get counted. They're pawns.
Yes. In the game of patents, you play to have a bigger stack or pay a
or
licensing
die.
fee.
Or go out of business.
If you didn't realize that Google is getting rid of Motorola's set-top box division, so any of those dreams you had of some sort of holy union of Motorola set-top box and Google TV is not going to take place within Google. It still could take place between the two companies later. But Aris Group and Pace, which are both current set-top box makers in the cable television business, seem to have made the most compelling bids for Google's Motorola Home business, which they're now spinning out, which would be the third. I think it's the third. Might be more Motorola's out there. There's Motorola Mobility and Motorola Solutions. Motorola Solutions is all the radios and stuff. Motorola Mobility is the cell phone and set-top box maker that Google owns.
Right on.
Yeah, right on.
That's, by the way, right on. For frequent watchers and listeners of Frame Rate, when Brian says right on, that means I have absolutely no opinion about this story whatsoever.
What, do you have an opinion about our sponsor, Squarespace.com?
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Squarespace, they're the best. Look at this. Look at this. They sent me a Moleskine notebook because they've known how long I love Squarespace. You know what my favorite thing about Squarespace is?
Everything?
No, I can't decide. I can't decide if it's the fact that it's so easy to create really high quality content on there because they have such badass looking templates, or the distributed hosting that prevents it from being taken down by an awful lot of traffic all at once. Because whether or not my site is so popular that it would be taken down, I like to think that at any moment it could be. And I take a lot of I feel better. I sleep better at night knowing that if I suddenly exploded and became the most popular person on the internet, Squarespace would have my back.
Yeah. They actually, during Hurricane Sandy, they and another company were part of the team keeping their co-location going by carrying buckets of fuel up 18 flights of stairs, and it kept Squarespace websites online. So they are absolutely dedicated, but you don't have to take our word for it. Sign up for a free account. No credit card needed. Just try it out. Start building your website. If you decide to purchase it, use offer code FrameRate12 and get 10% off your first purchase on new accounts. That's squarespace.com, offer code FrameRate12. Everything you need to create an exceptional website. And we thank them for their support of FrameRate. Go check them out. Show your support for FrameRate. Now, it is time for Film. Film Found segment, all about the things you watch. We don't care where you watch them, online, on the theater, on your television. It's just cool stuff to watch. And, of course, lots of trailers coming out. We're not even going to talk about Oblivion. That trailer's out. That's the Tom Cruise movie. Star Trek Into Darkness trailer is what everybody's talking about. Because there's a Japanese version that shows a very Wrath of Khan-like thing at the end. And both versions show a woman who Karsten, our producer, says that's just Yeoman Rand. That's got to be Yeoman Rand. But I think it looks like Sally Kellerman, who was in the episode that had Gary Mitchell. And Gary Mitchell might be the villain that Benedict Cumberbatch plays.
Man, that's all. Look,
there she is.
I just want to take off my chain and say your science is too tight. Your sci-fi is too powerful, Tom. You just said a lot of names and a lot of references that were over this would-be geek's head. All I know is I saw a lot of explosions and Cumberbatch looking like a badass. And yes, it does have a very Wrath of Khan vibe to the stuff I've seen. And even if it's not actually Khan, I don't care about the labels. Just give me something as good as Wrath of Khan. Make me believe. Take me back to 30 years ago with that epic, essentially space submarine battle, which, well, in this case, since half the scenes show the Enterprise crashing into water, maybe it's a literal submarine battle. But all I know is these guys could do no wrong right now. I loved the reboot of Star Trek. It's what gave me faith in the relaunching of the Star Wars brand. Super excited about this. Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at 10.
Also a trailer out for After Earth, which stars Will and Jaden Smith in a story about a father-son, just like in real life, pair who crash on a planet that is filled with animals that were evolved to kill humans. And can they survive?
Yeah, this is, and of course, part of the reason, I'm excited about it is Gary Whitta wrote this. Gary Whitta did Book of Eli. He was nice enough to come on my short-lived show, Game On, and I've been a fan of his work for a long time. This is an astonishing trailer. It starts off with a panda kid breathing, and then boom, his dad gets blown out into space, and the next thing you know, they're down on Earth. When you read the description in the trades that it says, oh, it takes place on an Earth that the environment has, turned on humans and now wants to kill them or whatever, you don't get a sense for how good an opportunity this gives you for an exploration in hostile territory. But what I found most curious, did you notice what was not in this trailer at all?
Jada Pinkett Smith?
Nope. You did not notice who the director was. Nowhere did it say directed by M. Night Shyamalan.
Oh, well, it said that in the story, but it doesn't. They don't credit him in the trailer?
I didn't. Have you seen it?
I've seen the trailer, but I didn't really pay attention. I never pay attention.
Yeah, no, it doesn't say. It doesn't say from M. Night Shyamalan or whatever. And I think that's a smart thing to do because, M. Night Shyamalan has had a rocky last couple of movies.
There's a twist.
But his brand, most importantly, means suspense followed by some kind of big twist at the end. And if what you have is a more conventional, straightforward sci-fi narrative, then I think it's smart to not necessarily push.
Well, and they're telling you right from the beginning that they landed on Earth. Like, that's not the twist. That could have been the twist.
Well, there won't. No. Well, that would have been yes. And
you know what I mean. But that's not how they made this movie. So.
Right. Correct.
All right. Maybe there's another twist. Maybe it's all taking place on a spaceship.
Here's a nutty idea. How about just a straightforward or awesome sci-fi show?
Yeah, well,
that would be fun.
I guess we could do that too, Brian. How about a straightforward, awesome show about Silicon Valley? There's, of course, the reality TV show on Bravo, the startup something or other. There's also Lol Work, which if you've heard all the complaints about the Silicon Valley Bravo show, go watch Lol Work. It's about Ben Huz, Icon Has Cheeseburger, and it's actually a real documentary. These things are not always 100% real, but it's a much better look at a startup culture than the other show. But King of the Hill creator Mike Judge is on board to make a live-action series about Silicon Valley. The show's said to be a dark comedy filmed with a single camera that will examine how, quote, the people most qualified to succeed are the least capable of handling success. So not a documentary, but it sounds like Mike Judge's brand of humor being applied to Silicon Valley.
Yes, well, and we've seen great things come from Mike Judge, but then we've also seen executions like Idiocracy that kind of missed the mark, at least as far as mainstream appeal.
Send the hate mail to Brian, not me.
No. I'm just saying that Idiocracy did not make as much money as Mike Judge personally deserves, because that guy deserves all the dollars any of us have.
Yeah. Finally, for Canadians, we like to give good news to Canadians because they tend to complain that they get everything last and we ignore them. Arrested Development, when it comes to Netflix, will be coming to Canada at the same time that it comes to the United States. When they originally announced that they were bringing Arrested Development back with new episodes on Netflix, it was U.S. only, but they just announced, hey, guess what? We're going to bring, with the excitement surrounding the return of Arrested Development, we are thrilled to premiere the new season of the show in Canada at the same time as we launch it in the U.S.
Can you imagine any program that Netflix could have, any exclusive that Netflix could have done that would more annoy the land of the greatest comedians in the world? Like, all the greatest English-speaking comedians seem to come from Canada. And you take one of the greatest comedies of all time, you reboot it as a Netflix original, and then to not give it to Canada at the same time as America, that would have been a disaster. So
yeah, I'm glad they were able to work that out. I'm sure it was a nest of licensing. But it is now time to check in on the very interesting winter movie draft.
Oh, it's on!
Which I wouldn't say is anybody's game, but it's a lot more people's game than maybe we expected it to be. And this week is when my big bet, The Hobbit, comes out.
This is amazing to me, Tom, because we are watching a couple of surprises, right? So is it fair to say it's a two-man race between the hosts of Frame Rate? It's a Tom and Brian extravaganza?
I think right now it's mostly a two-man race, but I would not count out Scott Johnson, because if The Hobbit underperforms, I mean, The Hobbit's going to make a lot of money, but let's say it doesn't make as much as I want it to make.
Right.
And let's say Rise of the Guardians is starting to really churn now for me. It's now made $61 million. But let's say that sputters out. Scott Johnson's got Les Mis, and he's at $314 million.
Okay.
So Les Mis could make $90, $100 million and pass you up, Brian, if Lincoln sputters out. But you've got Lincoln. So Lincoln can keep you ahead. And I've got The Hobbit and Rise of the Guardians. That could keep me ahead. And Father Roberts even got a bunch of movies at the end. And he still got Hotel Transylvania, which was the best buy, bar none, of the season. I think really, unfortunately, it looks like Sarah is the one who's out, and probably Justin.
Yeah, Sarah and Justin are out of the running, and there's no chance for Father Robert unless divine intervention strikes. It's you and me and Scott. Scott, I'm going to say the track record of the Les Mis franchise is not enough for me to think that he has to get over $100 million, because I'm out of gas. I'm at the end of everything. However, Wreck-It Ralph and Lincoln continue to pull in $3 million a weekend, a couple million there, a couple million there. I think they're pulling in over $1 million a day combined for me every weekday. So it's like I'm out of gas, but I'm squeezing forward right now. I am $380 million. No, $280 million ahead of you. Is that right? Yeah, $280 million ahead of you. Rise of the Guardians came back from nowhere. It was the #2 movie last weekend. Did you know that?
Yeah. No, it was the #1 movie last weekend.
No, there was a different one that was the #1
According
movie.
to NSFW Show's Twitter feed on Sunday, It was the top grossing movie of the weekend.
Oh man, you know what? Maybe I read a projection.
Well, maybe I read it wrong then, but
yeah, I don't know.
Either way, it made a lot more than I expected, and it's become the number 3 buy. So that might keep churning some dough for me, which would offset the continually churning Lincoln that you have, which has been not doing the spike and then not make anything. It's a money bank for you as well. So I need to make $280 million on The Hobbit. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, this is one of those times where it's like we've always said that the draft ends, what was it, 2 weeks after the last release or
I thought it was 4. Is it 2?
I don't know. Well, 2 weeks after the last release.
Oh,
but The Hobbit's not the last release.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
December 25th is the last release.
Yeah, okay. So this will be interesting. It may come right down. We may imagine this.
And Les Mis is the last release.
Imagine this. We could have like a Florida nail biter here, where it's the new year and we still haven't established.
Oh, we could have a hanging Chad. We might have to hang Chad because if Les Mis keeps making money after the 2-week cutoff, and I'm Scott Johnson, I'm protesting if it would make a difference.
Oh my God! Yes. All right. This will be amazing.
Go see The Hobbit.
This is easily the most nail bitingest of the winter drafts that we've had.
Nail bitingest. Let's take a look at what we're watching.
What we're watching.
Well, Brian, it sounds like maybe I've got you on the Archer train.
Oh my gosh, do you ever? I watched one episode, and it's awesome to me how our experience kind of paralleled each other, because we both watched the first episode of Archer with our significant other, and we both, it's pretty good, but our significant other was rather turned off by it. Would that be fair to say?
Eileen, I don't know if turned off, but Eileen was like, yeah, whatever. She certainly wasn't wanting to watch a second one.
Right. Well, and I don't know how much of Bonnie's take had to do with being 9 months pregnant. You're like, this is not what I want to be looking at. I'm gonna go look at something else. But then seeing you dive in, and then hearing you say like, oh, it does not get any nicer, and but at some point it starts to feel good, and so I started watching, and it was like the second episode, like being there, not having Bonnie or anyone else I had, like it was just for me. And then by the third episode, like I'm like 6 or 7 episodes in, and I'm continually impressed with what they on purpose wrote to be said out loud in front of millions of people on television. Like I love it. I love it. I'm like, wow, that's where you went with that.
Well, and you know what's funny is like that stuff is shocking and funny and like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that. That's not even the funniest stuff to me. Like the running gags, some of them which are also those shocking things as well. But just that's how you get ants and and the stuff that they set up like certain characters' sexual perversions that keep popping up at time from time, or it's like certain running gags of certain people that everybody's okay with bagging on, or it's like or even the danger zone. It's like. It's really well-written comedy, which you would expect from this team, the folks who have been because this is the same team all the way back to C-Lab 2020-21, right? Wow, is it really? Yeah, all the way back.
Because
That's
certainly
crazy.
the same animation style. They also did the I always forget the Frisky Dingo in between, and a bunch of other stuff too.
Nice. What else you been watching? But you bailed on Blood and Chrome?
Oh my gosh, dude! I'm gonna catch some hate, but. I found myself in the weird position. I watched the first 2 episodes of Blood and Chrome because everyone loved it. They said it was so good. But I think my experience was colored because I watched it with Brant Hughes, Gadawag in the chat room, came down to help us out to fill a bunch of these orders. He's going to be my new assistant traveling on the road with me next year. And so he came down to spend a week. And when we were done, I was like, hey, let's watch Blood and Chrome. We put it on. And because he never fell in love with the original Battlestar Galactica, we watched the first episode of Blood and Chrome, and then we got almost to the end of the second episode, and I realized that almost everything I was loving about or enjoying about this experience was a reflected glory from what was truly great about the reboot of Battlestar Galactica a few years ago. And I could tell it just wasn't hitting with Brandt. So I was like, I stopped after the second episode. I was like, let me show you what you should be feeling. And then and we went back and watched 33, the first episode of the series. And oh my God, when you watch the two side by side, now I'm not saying that you should hate Blood and Chrome, but I'm going to say before you go saying it's so great and blah, 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 just go back and reset your color palette and just watch how good that first season of Battlestar Galactica is again. And you can see, like, from everything I heard, I was like, why did Sci-Fi pass on this? But then I watched 33, and I'm like, that is why Sci-Fi passed on this.
Yeah. You know what? I can see that. I can agree with that it's not better than the original and not even in the same class
Not
as the
even
original.
close.
But
Yeah.
my mind is getting that reflected glory and comparing it to Caprica.
Oh no! See, that's great because if you had your palette set by Caprica and you're like, "Oh, this is what I want Caprica to be," then I can see that being really good.
I've been watching Arrow. Not the best episode of Arrow this week. It fell a little bit flat, but overall, really, really good superhero TV show. If you haven't checked it out, CW app has I don't think they have the first episode anymore, but you can go back and catch up on a lot of them. And it's it's actually interesting. It's got character development, and it's not skimping on the superhero aspect and making it too trite and cliche and simple. It's definitely doing a better job than Smallville had done toward the end of its run.
So how close to the end of Fringe are we? Like
mid-season finale. So we've got another half a season after the first of the year coming. Shall we move on and get some feedback in before we have to go?
Now it's time for feedback with Brian and Tom on Frame Rate. Oh, yeah.
John in Grace Lake, Illinois says, love the show. I would, however, like to thank you both for making me lose an entire weekend. I've been listening to the two of you talk about The Walking Dead for a while now and never watched. This past weekend, I was waiting for my wife to wake up. I was looking through Netflix and said, what the heck? I started watching on Saturday morning, and I'm still watching Sunday night. I got nothing done except for some enjoyable moments with my wife. I sat here glued to the TV for the whole weekend, so thank you for that. I'm sure Comcast will be sending me a notice that I have far surpassed my data cap for the month now as well. Anyway, loving Walking Dead, and looking forward to getting up to Season 3. Thanks, John. I'm glad you enjoyed it. That's good to know that when you just binge on it, it gives you a little Walking Dead high.
That's one of our. That's one of those nice, satisfying. Our work here is done.
Yes,
moments.
exactly.
By the way, we did get an email, really awesome. I didn't capture the name of the guy who did it, but he points out that there's a whole bunch of children's programming that are up at archive.org. So if you go to archive.org and look up Christmas programs, they got old copyright-free versions of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer that are animated. They're well produced. They're just stuff that the copyright has expired on. And Christmas comes but once a year, 1936. A treasure trove back there. And we got one more here. And this is another ethical dilemma. My friend, let's call him Steve, canceled his cable subscription 2 years ago and is only paying $50 a month for 10 megabits per second of internet. Lightning struck the pole and zapped the line, his modem, his router, and two network interface cards. After the idiot subcontracted cable guy hung a new line from the pole to his house, he did a terrible job. My friend Steve noticed that he suddenly had basic cable on the line. Steve says that he knows there was no cable after he canceled it, but he's not sure when exactly it came back, only that he checked after the lightning strike. So, what are Steve's moral, legal obligations? Should he watch or record shows? Should he call the cable company and inform them of their error? Since this company has a monopoly in his neighborhood for high-speed internet, should he look at this as a gift from God to spite the evil cable company? He says, please don't use his name, which, we don't know your name. We only know Steve's name. This is actually the oldest question in the book, and I can't believe we haven't talked about it on Frame Rate because this was the issue 20 years ago when everything was analog cable. A lot of times you would move into a house and the cable would just be coming in. And I remember Time Warner Cable ran these advertisements saying, like, if you happen to notice that free cable is coming into your house, if you don't tell us, you're a thief. And it's like, that made me so mad.
You wouldn't steal a policeman's helmet and take a dump in it, would you? then you shouldn't steal cable.
Right. And it's like, to me, my opinion on this one is the same as it was 20 years ago. They walked to your house, they fidgeted some gizmos, and now you are receiving the content. You didn't ask them to do it. You didn't pay somebody under the table. They are giving you the service, and you have no obligation to report it. However, you have no obligation to complain the moment they correct the error.
Also, it's probably legal.
Illegal?
No, it's probably legal.
Oh, legal. Thank goodness.
I hesitate to say definitively, but there are a lot of situations out there, including ClearCam, where if you pay for the ISP, they give you the very basic access to broadcast channels without you having to even ask for it. In fact, a lot of people don't even realize they get it. So that may have been implemented since he canceled TV, and that's why he didn't know it was there. But my suspicion is that this is not something that was messed up, that it's that kind of thing where they're like, yeah, we give you all the broadcast nets and the local access channels and, the very basic. Now, if he writes back and says, no, it wasn't just the local channels and the access. I was getting, Discovery Channel and ESPN and stuff like that.
He says basic cable,
basic, it depends on what he means by basic, then that's a different story, and it is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
All right, well, that is it for this episode of Frame Rate. Thank you, everybody, for watching. What? Oh, wait.
Real quick,
you're right.
before we wrap everything up.
Wait,
I got one
You've
quick
got to
plug.
save Christmas. I forgot.
That's right. I do. Well, and actually, mainly for just everybody super lazy out there right now. You heard me mention before that we launched an online store at scamstuff.com, which is all the stuff that you want for scam school. And we had our first product, which was the Scam Pack, which was a pint glass filled with enough gizmos and gadgets and little knickknacks to allow you to perform 100 different effects from the series Scam School. The right kind of dice, the right kind of pen for the friction pen, the placebo bands, and a premium deck of Rebel playing cards. Here's the thing. We got everything up and running. The Indiegogo campaign was hugely successful. We have only like 70 more orders to fill in the next day or two, and then we're totally caught up. But we got to put a cutoff date for Christmas, and also the fact that my wife is going to pop in the next 2 weeks, and we're going to have a baby. So what we're going to do is, starting tomorrow, we're recording this Monday evening on the 10th. Starting tomorrow afternoon on the 11th, we're going to do a 48-hour sale where you can either get a Scam Pack for only $30 or a half pack, which is just the pint glass and the premium Rebels deck of cards. These were designed by Shepard Fairey, by the way, the guy who did the Obama Hope poster.
But he didn't rip off an Associated Press image when he designed those.
Well, yes. Also, he ripped off those photos of Andre the Giant. But since Andre the Giant has a posse, nobody complained. At any rate, we're doing $30 Scam Packs, $15 half packs. The sale's only for 48 hours, and then we're done. Nobody gets nothing before Christmas, and I'm done for the rest of the year. But that's all starting tomorrow at Scam Stuff. 48-hour sale for lazy, last-minute people like me.
All right, twit.tv/FR for everything else you need to know about life. We'll see you next time.